I might go into a quick introduction to some of these manuscripts we're going to be talking about. Okay, here we go. All right, we're live now. Just in case, because I've seen it a bunch of times now where the live sometimes screws up, let's do record to the cloud as well. All right, Shabbat Shalom, all of our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah Almighty and Yahushua Messiah. I am your brother Doug. I am going to be, I should say, are going to be going into a series we've been doing for a while called Areas That the Samaritan Pentateuch, Targums, Dead Sea Scrolls, Peshitta, and the Vulgate agree with the Septuagint. So this type of study is going to deal with different cross references, different verses, where these other manuscripts that I've just mentioned give extra second, third, sometimes fourth witnesses to the supremacy of the LXX manuscript of the Tanakh, the Old Testament. So basically, I'm going to go through a little bit of an introduction because some of you might be saying, Doug, what the heck are all those you just mentioned? I do have a go into a quick introduction out, and it's called let's see, what is the actual name of it called? What is the Septuagint, Samaritan Torah, and the Peshitta and the Targums? And that is a very quick, short 30-40 minute video that will kind of break it down to you. You know, you could call it manuscript. What are these manuscripts for dummies? It could be the name of the book for it. So it's going to go, that little video is going to be very helpful. It will explain to you way more than what I can explain to you in this very short, limited couple of minutes that I'm going to give here to explain to you guys in a brief synopsis what they are. So let's start with the first one. The Samaritan Torah is a similar version of the Tanakh, even though it's only the first 5 books. It's the Samaritan Pentateuch. It was written roughly around 100 BC. It's very close to the age of the Septuagint. According to Wikipedia, you can look this up for yourselves. Over like some 8,000 variants, which means differences, that it has with the Masoretic text. The Septuagint agrees with at least, I forget the exact percent, I think it's like at least 1/3 of those variants. The Septuagint agrees with it over the Masoretic text. Then you have the Targums, which were very important to the community in Israel post-Babylon. What happened was, the legend goes, post-Babylonian captivity, they came back to the land. No one knew Paleo-Hebrew anymore other than a couple of the prophets like Daniel. So what happened was, the legend goes that supposedly the origin of these Targums even go all the way back to Nehemiah and Ezra in the book of Nehemiah, where, he's standing on the podium, and certain translations will paraphrase and will say, he made them understand the scriptures. What does that mean? That means he expounded. Interpretive. He interpreted the Torah for them. He interpreted Tanakh for them. Essentially, that's what Targums are. They're interpretive Aramaic translation manuscripts of the original Paleo-Hebrew Torah and Tanakh. So the Targums, the Aramaic Targums, that's what they are. And a lot of the times, I would say the majority of the times, the Targums will agree with the LXX version over the Masoretic version as well. So those are a couple of the manuscripts that we're going to be delving into. Also, the Latin Vulgate. I'll give you a little quick history about the Vulgate, what the Vulgate is. The Latin Vulgate is a hybrid manuscript of the Tanakh and of the Brit Hadashah, by the way, too. The Brit Hadashah version is all Latin and Greek based, but the Tanakh is very interesting. The Tanakh of the Vulgate is what I've been really looking into. Yahuwah's put on my heart to really look into, because supposedly halfway through, when Jerome made the Vulgate manuscript, in 300 AD, 3rd century AD, by the way, which is about 8 centuries before Masoretic text ever existed. Jerome was using the Septuagint at first. When he started with the latter books of the Tanakh first and worked his way back to the front, he started with the Septuagint for Psalms and certain books like that for the Vulgate. Then when he got halfway through, he decided to switch to a Hebrew text of his day. Mind you, that's important. Why is that important? Again, I said historically you can look this up. There was no Masoretic text when Jerome lived. He would have used a much earlier Hebrew text. And the rumor is that the Hebrew text he used was a little bit younger than the original Septuagint from 300 BC. So it would have been possibly a Hebrew copy from 100 AD to 300 AD, which is very important for us because that means he would have had a Hebrew copy that would have been a lot closer to the Septuagint and would have agreed with the Septuagint a lot of the times, which it does. We have proof of that. So just wanted to explain to you guys all these different manuscripts here. The Peshitta, there's not much known about the Peshitta manuscripts other than they were translated from the Hebrew at a time where Aramaic was a very common spoken language in 1st century Jerusalem. So the Aramaic Peshitta consists of the Tanakh and the Brit Hadashah, so the First Covenant and New Covenant scriptures. So the Peshitta of the Tanakh, roughly, they dated to 1st century, 2nd century AD, 100, 200 AD, roughly about. So again, sometimes though that manuscript will agree in certain verses with the LXX over the Masoretic text. So this is kind of the purpose of this study, to show there's a plethora of other manuscripts that in places agree with the LXX over the Masoretic text. And it's not just like one here, one there. Sometimes it's like many, many, many verses they agree with the LXX over the Masoretic text. And so far, as we go to the document here, you'll see we've already done 3 parts, 3 different videos already worth of cross-references. So many, many, many instances of this. So part 4, I kind of just started with, so bear with me, guys. This is probably not going to be that long of a video because I didn't have much time to jot down as many verses as I could find for the part 4. So, but we have a couple here. So the first one we're going to start with is Exodus 33, 4-5. And let me just make sure. I know I have a sister that that is probably going to want to be seeing this live here. So let me just copy and paste the live here for her, just in case she wants to see it. Where is my Telegram? All right, because I think our sister Marissa will want to see this. Okay, so hold on a second. Bear with me, guys. All right, but our first cross reference is going to be it's going to be Exodus 33, I believe. And let me just close out some of these here. Okay. Exodus 33, verse 4. Masoretic might be verse 5 or vice versa. So, but it's going to be in chapter 33, verse 4. So let me just highlight that here. So let's go back to the shared screen here. Exodus 33, verse 4. And let me just see, what are we looking for here? So we're looking at the difference of clothing versus ornaments is the main difference there you're going to see. Okay, so Exodus 33, verse 4. And it says here, okay, what's very weird is the Masoretic text has it read like this. For Yahuwah had said unto Moses, oh, my bad. It's verse 4. Okay, so verse 4 in the Masoretic. And when the people heard these evil tidings, meaning evil news, they mourned, and then they did, and no man put on him his ornaments. So the weird thing about this is, really ornaments, as far as I know, have nothing to do, like earrings and jewelry have nothing to do with joyfulness or gladness, as far as I know. So to me, replacing the original word that was there, according to the Septuagint, with ornaments makes zero sense. But if you look at the Septuagint version, it makes a lot more sense. It says, and the people having heard this grievous saying mourned in mourning apparel, mourning clothing versus ornaments. So the Masoretic modern Hebrew text would make you think that they just didn't put their earrings on and their necklaces on. Okay, what does that have to do with mourning?
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, that's the major issue there. And according to my bullet point here, the Vulgate agrees with the Septuagint. Mourning clothes, the Vulgate has as well. So that's just one of the examples there of how the Masoretes changed the Hebrew text, and with their little dots and dashes could change words. So, okay, let's see here. The next verse I have here is the next chapter, 34:11 or verse 12, depending on your translation. The Samaritan Pentateuch and the LXX have Girgashite. It is omitted in the Masoretic text. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about here. So put it on the screen here for you guys. So 34, verse 11 or verse 12, depending on what Tanakh you're looking at. So take heed to all the things whatsoever I command you. Behold, I cast out before your face the Amorite, Canaanite 2, Perizzite 3, Hittite 4, Hivite 5, Girgashite 6, and Jebusite 7. So the one tribe that they omit for some reason is the Girgashite. I don't know why that would be the case. I've heard people that are pro-Masoretic try to say that yeah, there it is right here. They try to say that, well, they would have been dead at this point. I don't think so. We're talking about the book of Exodus here, okay? They wouldn't have killed any tribes yet, as far as I know of. I could be wrong, but as far as I know of, there would be no reason to omit one of the tribes there in that verse. So the Samaritan Pentateuch agrees, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, they just have it as verse 12 instead of verse 11. But as you can see here, it says Girgashite right here in the middle of the verse. So Girgashites are completely omitted out of the Masoretic. It's there in the Samaritan Torah. It's there in the Septuagint. And by the way, guys, if you want to know how to get the Samaritan Pentateuch in English translation on whatever your Bible software, just message me. Let me know. If anyone's interested, I can show you guys where to find it. I think stepbible.com also has it where you could just read it from that website. If you want it easier, you could just read it from the website. So again, the Samaritan Pentateuch is rumored to be from 100 BC. So again, you have the earlier versions had that in the verse. And that's why that's important. Now, obviously, with the Dead Sea Scrolls might even have Girgashite there. I wouldn't know because, I don't have the Dead Sea Scrolls in front of me. So, but anyway, Mom, would you like to read Exodus 35, verse 5?
Sure. Okay. From what you have, take an offering for Yahuwah. Everyone who is willing is to bring to Yahuwah an offering of gold, silver, and bronze.
Okay. All right. So we got silver and bronze. Interesting. So does it just say offering in yours?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's the difference. So the Septuagint and the Vulgate, instead of just saying offering, both of them say first fruits.
Oh, okay.
So it's a specific type of offering,
Mhm.
which for whatever reason the Masoretic would want to change that. I don't know why, but they did. We know they did. It was either them or someone along the lines between 300 AD and 1100 AD, because it's the earlier versions have it.
Mm.
So at some point in time, they're changing the text. So Exodus 35 verse 5, you go to the Breton Septuagint right here on the screen, says, take of yourselves an offering for Yahuwah. Everyone that engages in his heart shall bring the first fruits to Yahuwah. And for the Vulgate, I use this one, which if you guys are interested and you want a link for, I can provide the link. It's the Catholic public domain version, meaning it's a public domain Bible, not copyrighted, that you guys can test for yourselves. It is Vulgate based. Obviously, it's a Catholic Bible. It's going to be Vulgate based. So it says here, separate from among you the first fruits. Again, first fruits. So this is proving that a earlier Hebrew text, possibly from the 3rd, 4th century AD at the latest, agrees with the Septuagint. And it's showing that the Septuagint had to have been translated from a sorry guys, got something in my mouth. Ugh. From a more accurate Hebrew text, a Paleo Hebrew text. This is added witness to that. So anyway, Exodus 36, 35, and 37. So now we're going to go to Exodus 36, verses 35 and 37. Now, let me see. Let me get a new reader here. Brother Dennis, would you like to read Exodus 36, verse 35 and 37?
I'm having he's upset. Hold on.
What was that?
35 verse 7?
Exodus, what did I say?
Chapter 35.
35. Chapter 36, verse 35 and
35
37.
and 37.
So chapter 35?
Chapter 36.
36.
Yeah,
Okay.
36, verse 35 and 37.
Oh, okay, chapter 36, verses 35 and 37.
Yeah.
Oh, and he made a veil of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine worked linen. It was made with cherubim, the work of a skilled workman. And he made 4 columns of acacia wood for it and overlaid them with gold, with their hooks of gold. And he cast 4 sockets of silver for them. And he made a covering for the tent door of blue and purple and scarlet material and fine woven linen made by a weaver. And it's 5 columns with their hooks, and he overlaid their tops and their rings with gold, but their 5 sockets were of bronze. Okay.
Did your version mention anything about twisted linen?
Twisted?
Yeah.
Overlaid material. Yeah, I didn't read anything where it said twisted material.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so that was the major difference I came across. So the Vulgate says here, it says, and let's see, and the tires of fine linen and mitre of fine linen. Let me see here where exactly it's at here. I think we came across it in verse 35 here. Yeah, here we go, verse 36. And the drawers of fine linen twined. The Vulgate and the Septuagint both say of twisted linen or twined linen. So this seems to have been omitted at some point. Yeah, yours mom like the thing from the LXX. Look at your footnotes.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, look at the footnotes on your Bible. It might say LXX on the bottom.
yeah, okay.
Because I know the NIV does that sometimes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so, but yeah, the LXX and the Vulgate, Latin Vulgate, have fine twined linen. So that's another example there of something that was omitted. Ooh, jeez. Oh, I don't know.
All right. Sorry.
Oh boy.
That's all.
Oh boy.
Major.
All right, so now we're moving on to chapter 39, verse 24 and 29. And we're going to see this again where something's omitted from about the yarn. Okay, scarlet spun. So scarlet colored spun linen. So this is in Exodus 39. Verse 24 to 29. All right, so I'm gonna have to look at a different translation here. All right, so yeah, I forget how they did this. Okay, ooh. All right. I'm trying to find a version of the Septuagint that fixes the verse numberings here. All right, yeah, so ABP here. Okay. Verse 24, and they made upon the hem of the garment from below as it were of a blossoming pomegranate, the figures of pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet being spun. So it's talking about spun yarn that is scarlet colored as part of the hem here, which actually I think should probably say tassel. I would have to look back at that, what they're talking about. If it's talking about the tent, then I could see it saying hem. Like the tabernacle.
Mine says twined.
Okay, so we do have twine there. Okay. All right, that's interesting that the Masoretic has it there that time. Okay. So it looks like then there's not a difference there. So both seem to have it there. Let's see here. It's just so hard to like follow this because the verse numberings are so like different. So yours says twisted twine, huh? Okay. All right, so I guess I was wrong about that one. So that one, there is no difference there. Okay. I'll get rid of that. All right. All right, next chapter we have here is Exodus 40, verse 38. 40, verse 38. Now, the difference here is it can be either an omission or addition with this. Now, the Septuagint has, it just says, for a cloud was on the tabernacle by day, and the fire was on it by night before all Yashrael in all their journeyings. Now, the Masoretic and a lot of the other versions have it saying the cloud of Yahuwah was on the tabernacle. Obviously, we know it's his cloud, but it seems like later versions of the Tanakh felt the need to add Yahuwah's name there to, I guess, make it specific, even though if you look at the prior verses, you can kind of figure it's talking about the pillar of the cloud being resting on the tabernacle. Specifically in verse 35 of that same chapter, it talks about the esteem of Yahuwah filled the tabernacle. So you can kind of get the idea of what it's talking about with the cloud, the pillar of the cloud, and all that. But maybe little additions of the Tanakh felt the need to add in Yahuwah into verse 38. I could really see why they think it's needed it's not exactly needed because you have already Yahuwah's esteem being talked about like 5 verses earlier. So it's really like, it's very possible the Masoretic and the others could have added Yahuwah's name to the verse there, or it could have been omitted in the modern editions of the Septuagint. But that's one time where I say the Masoretic has it better. That's one isolated instance. But again, we don't know we don't know which one came first, whether it was omitted or whether it was, added at a certain amount of time because the Septuagint doesn't have it. I would assume it was probably added because the Masoretes, sometimes they felt like they had to correct the text, quote unquote, and sometimes they felt like they had to add things or take away things. So that's very possible that that could have happened. So now, and again, we don't, just wanted to make this very clear here. We don't have the original Septuagint, so we don't know. It could have been omitted through copyings and copyings and copy errors. Who knows? Could have happened. The Septuagint we have today only goes back to the 3rd century AD because we have a copy of a copy of a copy. The Septuagint editions we have today are mainly from the Vatican Library, Codex Vaticanus, Codex Alexandrinus, Alexandria, Egypt, and the Sinaiticus. Those are the main 3 where we get the LXX today. They're all modern copies. They're not the originals. So could something have gotten omitted throughout time? Yes, it's possible. It's also possible they could have added it to the text. That Hebrew scribes could have added it to the text at some point. So anyway, just wanted to explain that. Leviticus chapter 1, verse 2 is the next one we have. The LXX and the Vulgate agree with sheep and oxen in that verse. This is where the Septuagint, in my opinion, is very handy. When you talk about being specific rather than generalizing, this is where I believe a thought for thought Bible is way more easier to understand than a transliteration. So I'll give you an example here, right? So stupid thumb drive keeps doing that. Okay, it says, "Speak to the sons of Yahshua and tell them, when any one of you offers an offering to Yahuwah, and you shall offer from the offspring of the flock, from the herd and from the flock." So the problem with this is it's not being specific what type of animals to offer. It's just saying from the flock. Yahuwah, that's really against his character to be that generalized. Okay. In the Septuagint here, it says, "If any man of you shall bring gifts to Yahuwah," so it's a very specific offering, it's a gift. "You shall bring your gifts of the cattle and of the oxen." It says of the cattle and of the oxen and of the sheep. Oxen and sheep is being very specific when it's talking about the herd. From the herd? The oxen and sheep. Same thing with the Vulgate. The Vulgate says oxen and sheep. So again, it's very specific what type of animals from the herd you're giving. And Yahuwah is a very specific Alua. He's very specific. He's not going to be like, "Oh, just give whatever from the flock." That's against his character to do that. So anyway, so now the next one is Leviticus 2:1. The Septuagint and the Samaritan Torah say it is a sacrifice or present. This is missing in the Masoretic. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about here. Verse 1 of Leviticus chapter 2. When a soul will offer an oblation sacrifice to Yahuwah, his oblation shall be of the wheat flour, and shall pour oil over it, and shall set down frankincense. Okay, so okay, let me see here. Maybe I have the wrong version I'm looking at here. Oh, Samaritan Torah and the LXX, not the Vulgate. Okay. So the Septuagint here says, instead of that version that we just read, the Septuagint would say, and if a soul bring a gift, a sacrifice to Yahuwah, his gift shall be fine flour. He shall pour oil upon it and shall put frankincense on it. This is the part that's missing right here. For those of you guys here, I'm going to show you real quick. It is a sacrifice, or it is a gift. So that's a big deal to me, because that's showing he's iterating that this is an offering. This is a sacrifice. Okay. So again, this is a big deal to me here. So you have in the Septuagint, right at the end there, it says it is a sacrifice. The Samaritan Torah as well, the only difference is instead of sacrifice, they use the word present, gift, present, gift offering. Okay. So the Samaritan Torah would say it is a present. It's pretty much the same thing. Okay. The Masoretic, though, if you look at any Masoretic version, it just says put frankincense on it. And then usually they have like a comma or a period, and then it goes to the next verse. So it is a sacrifice, or it is a present, is just not there at all. All right, so next one, Leviticus 2, verse 3. The Septuagint, Targum Onkelos, and the Vulgate, all three of them agree in Leviticus 2, verse 3, and there is the phrase made by fire is not there. Now, I have an opinion why it's not there, is because, quite frankly, it's not really needed to be said. Obviously, you make offerings by fire, right? Whole burnt offerings you make by fire. Burnt offerings you make by fire. Yahuwah did not have to iterate that to Aaron and the priests and people that already knew that. So what most likely happened, this is just a theory of mine, due to the fact that you got 3 to 4 different manuscripts that agree with the Septuagint here, that made by fire was not originally there, or by fire was not originally there, most likely it was added because the Masoretes probably felt like, kind of like how the priests, the Catholic priests, treat their clergy today. And they look at it as you got to spell it out for the people. And most likely the Israelites already knew that offerings were made by fire. Yahuwah did not need to iterate that. It was in their culture what offerings were. You know what I'm saying? So very possible this phrase here, by fire, might have been added to the text. Again, the versions that don't have that phrase by fire or made by fire would be the LXX, the Septuagint. Targum Onkelos does not have that phrase in that verse. And the Vulgate either. So you have 3 different manuscripts. 2 manuscripts that agree with the Septuagint over the Masoretic text. So it seems like the phrase by fire, you don't get until later versions of the Tanakh. So hence why I believe it was added to the text to, I guess, spell it out for the reader. Sometimes the Masoretes do that. They'll add things that are not necessary to add. Leviticus 7, verse 5. The Septuagint and Vulgate lacks the word offering. So we're going to look at Leviticus 7, verse 5. This is the last one here. All right, so and the priest shall burn them on the slaughter place as an offering made by fire. It is a guilt offering. So this is what I think is not there in the Septuagint or the Vulgate. It will just say they shall not leave it until morning, period. It is a sacrifice or offering. Probably because the chapter starts off already talking about their offerings. Probably that's why. Literally, verse 1 it mentions that these are peace offerings. So, literally, you could say that to defend the Septuagint and the Vulgate here, they did not need to iterate it. Yahuwah did not need to tell the people that it was an offering. Because it's literally talking about incense. The Vulgate would even read as, the priest shall burn them on the altar. So it's talking about burning something on the altar. It is the incense of Yahuwah on behalf of a sin. So meaning on the behalf of the sins of Israel. So in essence, you don't need to add the word offering onto transgression. It's inferred. You don't need to add it physically to the text. So again, this is another situation where, again, guys, I can't prove it, but I believe that somewhere down the road, when you got a manuscript like the Vulgate that's already 3rd or 4th century AD, right? And it doesn't have something that the Masoretic has. At some point between 300 AD and 1100 AD, you have someone adding that word there. And for those that think that I'm pulling at straws here, I recommend you look for certain verses in your Old Testament of your Bible, like Deuteronomy 32 verse 8, and tell me there hasn't been monkeying going around with that verse that say that Yahuwah appointed the nations at the time of the Tower of Babel according to the sons of Israel. Before Israel even existed. Doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So there's even been scholars finding this out, that there's been corruptions to the text between the 1st century and like down the line. When you get close, the closer you get to the Masoretic text, I want you guys to see this, especially brothers and sisters out there that are really of this faith. I want you to start noticing this. The closer you get to the date of the Masoretic text, the more corrupt the manuscript gets. The more corrupt it gets because you have more rabbinical Hebrew scribes taking away things, adding things, changing words. You don't have that in the 3rd century BC. You don't have that in the 2nd century BC. You don't have that in the 1st century BC, right? So the last 200-300 years of the BC time period before Messiah came to earth, you don't have that. You don't even have that in 100 AD for the most part. I mean, there's a little bit of stuff that's been changed on the text that the Vulgate would have been based on, but it's nowhere near the amount of corruption, in my personal opinion. These older manuscripts, there's nowhere near the corruption that the later manuscripts like the Masoretic has, or whatever the Masoretic would have been based on, like the Westminster Leningrad Codex or the Aleppo Codex or whatever, like 8th, 9th century AD manuscripts. By the time you get to the 9th and 10th century, it is very clear that there's been so many rabbinical scribes of different time periods that have tried to manipulate Yahuwah's word to the point where it gives, like, it's still usable, don't get me wrong. I don't want you guys to lose faith that is still Yahuwah's word. It's just there's been men throughout the centuries that have tried to manipulate it and twist it and pervert it. And it's important to understand this because eventually we're going to come across like atheists, right? And atheists are going to be like, oh, look at all these contradictions in your King James Bible. And, I believe looking into this stuff, Yahuwah has prepared me for things like this to say, oh, well, yeah, there seems to be like contradictions in a King James Bible because the King James Bible and many other Bibles like it today are not based on the original manuscripts. They're based on much later manuscripts, much less authoritative manuscripts, if you want my personal opinion. The New Testament in the King James is okay, but it's not the greatest manuscript that they used for the New Testament, and it's solely a Masoretic text Old Testament. So as far as that's concerned, the reason these atheists are finding so-called contradictions is because they're looking at Bibles that are really modern, that are like after the Middle Ages, mind you, that actually have errors because of the manuscripts they're using, if that makes any sense. It has to do with what manuscript you use. Because, for example, even though I don't think it's a perfect Bible, I could use a Greek Orthodox Bible, and there would be 10 times less contradictions. Supposable contradictions. There would be 10 times less if I'm using a Greek Orthodox Bible, or if I'm using a Aramaic Peshitta New Testament. There would be a lot less errors than in the modern Greek New Testaments. That's just a fact. So when the atheists say that, it's because they're uneducated and they don't understand it. We are actually uneducated, so I'm not trying to attack atheists. I'm just being honest here. We are uneducated too when they bring up these arguments, and we don't know about all these manuscripts. We don't know the differences. We don't know how to explain to them that, yes, the Bible is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. The first thing I would explain to an atheist is that his original word is in heaven. Number one, his original word is preserved in heaven, not on earth. Number one. Number two, the Bible is a copy of his original word. It is a modern, very modern day copy of his original word, so that we have a copy of who the Most High is, so that we know his character. That's the easiest way to explain it to an atheist, because we've been taught that the Bible is literally the exact same thing as, his word in heaven, and that the King James Bible is literally his word. And unfortunately, that's a half-truth, because the reality is a Bible is a copy of the word Yahusha, the living word that's in heaven. The Bible was a copy. Even the original scriptures, if you want to go back to the Torah of Moses, that was a copy. Moshe wrote down the exact words that Yahuwah verbalized to him, right? So that's a copy. He's copying down what Yahuwah tells him to write down. That's a copy. So we need to understand, like, the distinction of that. And we are very far removed from Moshe's Torah and all that. And mainly the reason why we've had to trust on translations is because if you read the whole Bible, Israel became very wicked, and Yahuwah allowed this to happen. Yahuwah allowed the original scriptures, at some point to get lost, probably due to Israel's apostasy. Okay, so when you understand that, you understand what a Bible is. A Bible is a copy of 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 his original word that's in heaven, preserved. That's what it is. It's our guide to know who he is. It's a blueprint. It's a guide to know who he is. It is a copy of his eternal, pure, perfect word. But to assume that, like, 10th, 20th handy-down generation copies are not going to be monkeyed with a little bit is very presumptuous on our part. And it's kind of unrealistic. Okay? Yahuwah never said, oh, by the way, the Torah that I gave Moshe to write down, Moshe's Torah, he never even promised Moshe's Torah that no man was going to ever try to add to it or take away from it. He never promised that. What he did do, though, was said that those that do that, which there have been those that done that, have, according to Revelations, if you just add to the book of Revelations, your part is in the lake of fire. Meaning, if you physically took it away from the book of Revelations or added even a jot to it or a tittle to it, you're going to the lake of fire. Why do you think Yahuwah is telling us this? Because there's a possibility men are monkeying with copies of his word. Mm-hmm. It's a reality. So when an atheist says to you, you say that this is the perfect inerrant word. No, we don't. The King James is not the perfect inerrant word of his. It's a copy of his inerrant perfect word. So that's a half lie, half truth that's been regurgitated to us in the Christian church. And we're so when we come across something, we see an error, automatically we're almost losing our faith, because the Baptist, especially those that were raised in a Baptist background or super highly evangelical background, were told that half truth, that, well, this is the very exact original word of his, which that is a half truth. It's not his original word. It's a copy. It's a manuscript. It's a translation. What does a translation mean? It's translated from a copy of his original word. That's what this is. It's a translation. Okay? It's important for us to understand this, guys, because eventually we are going to be spreading the good news to atheists or agnostics, and we have to be able to contend for the belief and be honest with ourselves and honest with them, and not tell them half truths like that, because then they'll find out for themselves that that's a lie. They're not going to trust you. You're telling them a lie. Okay, that's the reality. Now, again, I'm not saying not to trust the Bible. Obviously, we trust the Bible, but we also understand that we need to be in prayer when diligently seeking his word and trusting on his word, the scriptures. We can't just blindly trust the English translation that it's perfect. And that's what a lot of the Baptist church has done. They have idolized the King James Bible as the best Bible. And if you guys want to know why I think that that's an error, we done a video, talked about, I think the video was called The Error of KJV Onlyism and Restored Name Translation Onlyism. So I recommend you guys check out that study we did, that teaching we did, so that you understand from our point of view why I'm saying what I'm saying, okay? There's proof to what I'm saying, okay? There's deliberate mistranslations in English Bibles where they're not even being honest with the text. And it gets so crazy that I've heard people even preach that the King James Bible can be used to correct the original Greek words of the New Testament. And I couldn't believe I heard that. Are you kidding me? You're trusting an English translation of so-called scholars over the original Greek that it's being translated from, the actual manuscripts. That is ludicrous. That really is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe we got into that point. Like, that is insanity to me. Complete insanity. So anyway, so sorry for the rabbit trail, guys, but I just wanted to explain that, why these studies are important. These studies are going to get you closer, give you an idea where to start from, especially those of you. This type of study is really for those that dig deep, that have really been in this walk and have a firm foundation for years upon years. Those of you that are really at this point where you can, you have discernment a little bit. This is the type of study for you to really dig deep and let Yahuwah show you purer versions of his word. And this is the point of that. So again, if there's any babies in the faith watching, I don't want you to get discouraged. I'm just being honest with people here about the reality of what a translation literally is. Okay, it is a manuscript, a copy of his original word, not his original word, a copy translated into another language. That is what we call a translation or a Bible. That is what it is. So if we want to get closer to his word, we have to get closer to the original copy, if that makes any sense. Hence why the Septuagint is very important. It is the only link we have to the original full Tanakh that Yahuwah gave firsthand verbally to the prophets, verbally to his people, the original Paleo-Hebrew scriptures. The only link we have to that is the Septuagint. If you don't believe me, you can look it up for yourself. There's many links out there, whether it's Encyclopedia Britannica, whether it's Wikipedia, all of them mention that the Septuagint is a Greek translation of the original Paleo-Hebrew scriptures. Okay, so even though we don't have Yahuwah's original word that's in heaven, Yahushua himself, okay, is the original word. He is the word made flesh. Okay, even though we don't have that in front of us teaching us, we do have, just to show you like just to use a visual here, we have a copy of that. That's what the Bible is. It's a copy of his word, of his eternal word that is in heaven. So I just want to explain that. I want people to make sure they're understanding me correctly. I'm not saying to give up. I'm not saying to throw out the Bible. What I am saying is realize that a translation is that, a translation, and to not idolize a translation, because I see a lot of that going on. And sometimes it's not even KJV only. Sometimes it's on the other side of this walk where you have people that all they want to read is a Hallelujah Scriptures. All they want to read is TS 2009. Those are translations as well. They're just translations. They're still using similar sources that a KJV would use as far as the Tanakh is concerned. That's a proven fact. They're using the same source. You could look it up yourself. They're literally using the TS 2009 and Hallelujah Scriptures both use almost 100% Masoretic text for the Tanakh. So it's, as far as that's concerned, it's not head and shoulders better than having a regular Christian or Jewish Bible. So what I'm trying to say is, take what we said, think about it, do your own research into these resources I told you guys about today, research into these manuscripts for yourself. Don't believe me just because, you might like me or follow this ministry. Do your own research, test what I said. But again, I think it's very clear. The more videos we do on this particular topic, it's more and more witnesses how superior the Septuagint is compared to the Masoretic text. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed this study. I hope you guys got some edification out of it. And to all of our brothers and sisters out there that might need some fellowship, I just want to say, feel free to reach out. I'll say this though, don't do it on the YouTube comments, only because I got so many trolls sometimes. It gets to be ridiculous. Just don't do it on the YouTube comments. If you want to email me, fine. I should have my email linked up to the YouTube page. If you want to find me on Facebook, I have all my social media links linked up to our ministry page on YouTube. So feel free to reach out to me in any of those avenues. Just please don't do it on the YouTube comments. It gets crazy after a while. You got people that want to do drive-by comments on our videos sometimes. So, but anyway, so I hope you guys have a great rest of Yahuwah Shabbat, and see you next time. Shabbat Shalom.